Welcome to TechWire, a conversation about government, politics, and technology. I'm Christina Gagnier, and today I'm joined by Eric Steen, the project director with the Board of Equalization. Eric, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So today we're here at the CIO Academy, and I understand that you're speaking later. Can you discuss a little bit about what you're going to be focusing on?
Sure. My focus is primarily on how we can improve the trajectory of IT projects. That's generally it in a nutshell.
So I understand that you're in the process of undergoing a big IT project for the Board of Equalization. Maybe you can discuss a little bit about that project and how you're doing things a little differently than how things are normally done with procurement here in California.
Okay, yeah, sure. So the Board of Equalization, for those who don't know, collects about $60 billion annually, so about a third of the state's total revenue. And we have some fairly old technology that we're using to support our primary mission. So my job is to oversee the procurement and then the subsequent implementation. So as you can imagine, the elected officials who run our organization are really concerned that we do a good job, that we succeed, and unfortunately in California, and it's not just California, but IT projects tend to struggle. The success rate isn't good. Every time we look in the paper, it seems like there's another challenge that we're facing. So the question that I've been asked, and I think actually anybody in my role, any project director, any CIO who's undertaking a big IT modernization effort, the question I've been asked is, what are you going to do? What are you going to do to make sure that you succeed? I mean, how do you ensure that you have a good outcome versus cost overruns, schedule overruns, functionality that doesn't meet our needs? And so, I think it's a great question. We're taking a little different, I shouldn't say little, I think fairly substantially different approach. So at a high level, projects really have two phases. You have a procurement, and then after your procurement, you have your implementation. Now, when you get through your procurement, you may or you may not be ready for the implementation, okay? You're certainly ready for procurement because you've figured out how to write an FSR, an RFP, you've been through an evaluation, navigated the protest, everything else, but are you really ready for the issues that might emerge during the implementation? And so what we did is we said, let's not just do a procurement, let's go ahead and let's do what we call pre-implementation. So we identified a lot of the issues that occur during large implementation efforts, things like data conversion problems, things like a lack of understanding of your business, and we pulled those things in and we've handled them in parallel with the procurement. So data conversion is one area that we've really focused on. Documenting all of our business rules, all of the things that have to be true or untrue to fulfill a functional requirement, fully documenting your system landscape, so your system inventory. So what happens is, you got an RFP on the street, right? So the fact that you have an RFP on the street means that your existing systems are insufficient. When that happens, you've got all sorts of workarounds that have been implemented. Our requirements for those put into your RFP. Another thing that we've done is looked at all of our interfaces and we've addressed them as well. And then I'm trying to think of one other thing we've done, forms and reports. That usually gets snowplowed at the very end, so we've pulled those things in to deal with that up front during this pre-implementation phase.
So this sounds like a substantial project for the Board of Equalization. What will the outcomes be for the state of California and its citizens?
Sure. Well, the objectives of the project really are to improve the taxpayer experience, so make it easier to interact with the tax agency. What we found is, it's kind of alarming, but most people really don't want to interact with the tax agencies.
Shocking.
Yeah, right. They want to pay their taxes and be done with it, right? We want to make it easier for them. We also want to improve our internal processes and make it easier for us to do what we do. And then we also want to raise revenue, and we raise revenue by closing the tax gap, identifying where people are not rightly remitting what they owe to the state of California. So those are the objectives.
So as someone who's an active member in the CIO community here in California, what do you see as some of the obstacles and challenges that lie ahead, as well as some of the opportunities?
Well, I think there's an opportunity to maybe mirror what's being done on this project, if I could be so bold as to say that. Procurements take years. I mean, that's just the way they work. What we ought to do is take that time and make use of it, right? And we've done that by conducting pre-implementation. So, one of the things, it's always a thorny issue, for example, is data conversion, right? That usually causes big cost overruns, schedule slippage, major problems. So, one of the things that we did, and I think it can be replicated elsewhere, is we started now, we put in data tools, a set of data quality tools. We begin to put rules in the tools so we can evaluate the data, discover the anomalies, and cleanse them. We fixed almost about 500,000 data issues in our production environment. So that's a lot of things that we've fixed. We have a lot of data, actually. 500,000 is actually a small amount, comparatively speaking. Someone did the analysis, and they figured out if you took every data point in our primary system of record and you turned it into a penny, you would have enough pennies, and you put them on top of each other, you would have enough pennies to go to the moon, not once, not twice, but 400 times, right? So we have a ton of data, right? So assessing it for quality, fixing those issues is a huge issue. Also, what we've done is fully documented a data dictionary, which really didn't exist in any workable form when we started about 3.5 years ago. So we've completely documented our data landscape, all the entities, the attributes, the cardinality, and then we're putting in place a staging repository so that when the vendor comes in, they can migrate from that staging repository versus having to go into the database environment and navigate all the referential integrity for those who are technical in nature. All the referential integrity in our legacy environment is in the code. So you have to navigate the code to understand how a piece of data relates to another piece of data. We've minimized or gotten rid of that challenge by putting it in a staging environment where we have referential integrity in place at the database layer, and that's a work in progress. So I think that's a great opportunity that organizations need to look at if they're thinking about modernizing their systems.
Well, thank you for sharing what sounds like a trailblazing big data project here in California, and thank you for joining me today.
Sure, my pleasure.
And thank you to our audience at TechWire for joining us again in a conversation about government, politics, and technology.